All right. Just needed to make sure that I hit record. I've not done that the last couple times that we've been together. All right. Tonight, in our presentation, you're going to see a screen come up with this flashing "Talk to Me." When you see this screen come up, what I'm inviting you to do is to join me in live discussion. All right. If you're with us on Zoom, you can unmute and talk directly back to me, or you can make your comments in the chat. And then, of course, on Facebook Live, you can't join me person to person, but you can offer your comments in the comment section, and we'll do our best to catch those comments when we get to this Talk to Me slide. So every time you see this, I want you to join me in conversation. All right? And so we begin our lesson tonight at our discussion section. We begin our lesson at discussion. And as we begin, of course, I want to define what the spiritual disciplines are. We've been on this journey together for a couple weeks now, but I want to continue to keep this in front of us. I want to continue to rehearse this. So, excuse me, so that we get it, we gain an understanding of what the spiritual disciplines are. All right, so spiritual disciplines are habits, practices, and experiences that are designed to develop, grow, and strengthen certain spiritual qualities to build the muscles of one's spiritual life. And Richard Foster, who is the author of the book that I'm using as a guide, Celebration of Discipline, says this: the spiritual disciplines invite us to explore the inner caverns of the spiritual realm. All right. And so we've been talking about, or we began talking about the external disciplines. We covered the internal disciplines of meditation, prayer, fasting, and study. And so we are now engaged in this journey talking about the external disciplines of simplicity, which was last week. Solitude is what we'll address tonight. Submission will be next week, and service. So the external disciplines: simplicity, solitude, submission, service. All right. And we said that these external disciplines prepare us to make change in the world around us. External disciplines prepare us to make change in the world around us. And what we said last time we were together is this: that we become agents of change as we exercise these disciplines. So these external disciplines are disciplines that we must put into practice, not just these external disciplines, all of these spiritual disciplines, we must put into practice. So if you're not practicing meditation, if you're not practicing prayer, if you're not practicing fasting, if you're not practicing study, if you're not practicing simplicity, if you're not practicing solitude, you won't be able to engage the world in a way that brings about change. All right. And so we become agents of change as we exercise these disciplines. And so tonight, for the first time, here's our Talk to Me for the first time. Let me make sure that I fix this on Zoom so you can unmute. And all I want from you with this is agree or disagree. You don't have to qualify your response. Just tell me if you agree or if you disagree. And this is a quote directly from the book, Celebration of Discipline. All right. Our fear of being alone drives us to noise and crowds. Again, this is a direct quote from the book by Richard J. Foster, Celebration of Discipline. Do you agree with this statement or do you disagree with this statement? Once again, you don't have to qualify it. Just tell me whether you agree or disagree. Our fear of being alone drives us to noise and crowds. All right, I see that on Facebook Live. Agree. I see a disagree. All right.
Disagree.
All right. Disagree. Disagree. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. Y'all come on, talk to me here. Agree or disagree? This is just a straw poll. All right. There's another disagree, another disagree, disagree. Disagree, disagree, disagree. Y'all disagreeable tonight. Our fear of being alone drives us to noise and crowds. Disagree. I see y'all coming in. Disagree. All right. All right. All right. There's an agree. I see an agree. All right. All right. Agree or disagree? Our fear of being alone drives us to noise and crowds. Agree or disagree? That's all I'm looking for with this. Agree or disagree? All right. I'll give you a couple more seconds and then we're going to move on. All right. Couple more seconds. Anybody else going to respond on Facebook Live before we move forward? Agree or disagree? Our fear of being alone drives us to noise and crowds. I happen to agree with the statement. Just as I asked you not to qualify yours, I will not qualify mine. All right, so here we go. Oh, you mean I got two in a row? Two talk to me's in a row. How about that? That's some kind of Wednesday night precedent or something, man. All right, here we go. Tell me in a few words. Did I need to highlight in a few words? Tell me in a few words what solitude is. And I believe my folk on Zoom, you should be able to unmute. Yeah, you're still good. So you guys talk to me tonight. Tell me in a few words what solitude is. All right, and on Zoom, you can either, again, you can join me in live conversation or you can type your comments in the chat. Facebook Live, I need your comments in the comments section and we'll get to them as they come up. Tell me in a few words what solitude is. What is solitude? What is solitude? I can't believe my folk on Zoom scared to talk. I can't believe it. Let me see. All right, Gina Maxwell on Facebook Live says, spend time alone. Cynthia Brown on Facebook Live says, being alone. What is solitude? Let's see. Janice on Zoom says, being by myself and being happy about it. Wow. Wow. Let me see. Kim Pope says, solitude is being in a quiet place. Sandy Reynolds says, time to myself with no outside distractions to enjoy as I see fit. Emily Williams on Facebook Live says, in a quiet place by yourself. Keisha Stevenson says, alone. Dawn Smith, being alone. LaJuan Curry says, quality. Solitude. What is solitude? Lucinda Bean says, alone time. Okay. Solitude. Solitude. What is solitude? All right. To my family on Zoom. Anybody want to jump in this conversation? Going once? I stole this from Dr. David Anderson. Going twice? I did. 3 times. All right. Thank you guys so much. We're going to drive the train forward. What is solitude? We're going to drive it forward. Here we go. Solitude does not have to mean loneliness. Okay. You do realize that there's a difference in being alone and being lonely. Let's just establish that up front. There's a difference. There's a difference in being alone and being lonely. All right. When loneliness is inner emptiness. Solitude, however, is inner fulfillment. Okay. Loneliness is inner emptiness. Solitude is inner fulfillment. All right, this is more than simply a particular place. Rather, you want to get this. Solitude is more a state of mind and heart. Get that. Solitude is a state of mind and heart. And so, honestly, you can be in a room with 3,500 people with noise all around you and still have solitude, because it is more a state of mind and heart. Okay? A state of mind and heart. Solitude of the heart, get this, solitude of the heart can be maintained at all times. I want you to get that. Solitude of the heart can be maintained at all times. And so the world can be falling apart around you. But if you have solitude of heart, watch this, you don't have to fall to pieces. You can maintain your, let me say it that way. You can maintain your sobriety when you have solitude of heart and the world is crumbling around you. You can maintain your sobriety. All right. And that doesn't have anything to do with drinking alcohol. It has everything to do with being settled and calmed and centered. You got it? Solitude of the heart can be maintained at all times. And so how do we do it? Paul says, train yourself to be godly. You got it? 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 7 and 8 have nothing to do with godless myths and old wives' tales. Rather, train yourself to be godly. For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. Train yourself to be godly. Somebody just type that in the comments there on Facebook Live. Train yourself to be godly. You got it? And so here we are tonight at the discipline of solitude. The discipline of solitude. Here we go. Solitude is necessary to the spiritual life. Solitude is necessary to the spiritual life. I'll say that one more time. I don't want you to miss this or dismiss this. Solitude is necessary to the spiritual life. I don't know how many of you know this about me, but I will share this with you. I am a huge fan of comic books, particularly superhero comic books. Now, I must be very honest with you. My preference is Marvel comics. That's my preference. That's Iron Man, Captain America, Fantastic Four, Incredible Hulk, those cut, Marvel Avengers, that whole thing. Marvel is my preference, right? But every now and then, I'll drop in on DC Comics, right? One of the characters that I appreciate in DC Comics is Superman, not because of his strength, but I appreciate Superman because Superman understands the value of solitude. Superman has a fortress of solitude that is away from the world. It's nowhere near Metropolis. It is nowhere near the Daily Planet, where he poses as Clark Kent. The fortress of solitude is away from the world that he knows. So after fighting villains and after saving the world over and over again, getting people out of jams over and over again, he will take a recess and a respite, R-E-S-P-I-T-E, a respite, and he will go to the fortress of solitude that nobody else can get into except him. Nobody else has the passcode to the fortress of solitude but him. And he goes, and what does he do? He recharges in silence. There's nothing there but him. And are y'all getting this? I want you to get this. That's necessary for us because it helps bring us back into balance. When we've been fighting the fires of life and we've been saving folk all day, help me. We've been running our course. We've been doing our good Christian work. Help me. We've been missionaries and we've been evangelists and we've been pastors and we've been teachers and we've just simply been doing the work that God has called and created us to do. You cannot do that work in a vacuum. You must take time to separate in solitude. Every pastor, and let me tell you something, I'm horrible at this. Every pastor needs a Sabbath. Every pastor, watch this, needs to step away from the pulpit at least one Sunday a year. Help me. Get away from the building and the people drawing and pulling on you. And watch this, that ain't just for the pastor. That's for everybody. Help me. Now, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Because some of us have been so disconnected from the fellowship. I know we've been out of the building for a year, but some of us have been so disconnected, physically disconnected from the fellowship. And listen, it's not because we've been using it as a time of solitude either. We just been disconnected because we wanted to be disconnected. But watch this. We need to intentionally take moments of solitude because it brings us back into balance. Can I get about 4 people on Facebook Live to agree with me tonight? You need to be in good balance. Your spiritual life needs to be in balance. If you're too top heavy, you're going to fall over. If you're too bottom heavy, you're not going to be able to move. You need balance. Somebody just shout, you need balance. You need balance. And solitude helps bring us in to balance. I'm going to try to show you biblically some examples of this. How about this? Jesus initiated his ministry with 40 days in the wilderness. Y'all remember? Y'all remember? From Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through 11. Mark chapter 4 also. You remember, after Jesus was baptized of John in the Jordan River, John the Baptist, in the Jordan River. You know, you remember that scene? You know, you heard the voice of God from heaven. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. The Holy Spirit descended like a dove. Y'all remember that? And right after that, on the heels of that grand experience, the Bible says, particularly in the book of Mark, that immediately the Spirit driveth Jesus into the wilderness. Jesus began his ministry, get this, in solitude. Now, there was a purpose. The purpose was that he was to be tempted of the devil. But nonetheless, that temptation happened, in solitude. Yeah. He inaugurated his ministry after 40 days of solitude. How about that? All right, did y'all get that? I tried to leave that up there for you. Because it's a long passage, I chose not to read that one tonight. So you want to write that one down. Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through 11. How about this? Before choosing the 12, Jesus spent a night alone in the desert hills. Luke chapter 6, verse 12. I think I got this one up here. During those days, he, went out to the mountain. You see that? He went out to the mountain to pray and spent all night in prayer to God. This was before he selected the 12. Look at what Jesus does. He went out to the mountain to pray and spent all night in prayer to God. He spent time in solitude. Got another one for you. How about this? Upon hearing the news of John the Baptist's death, Jesus found a secluded place. Matthew chapter 14, verse 13. When Jesus heard about it, he did what? He withdrew from there. Do you see that? He withdrew from there by boat to a remote place to be alone. You see that? See that? Solitude. You can't get this. You cannot be afraid to be alone with yourself. Somebody type that in the comments on Facebook Live. I'm going to say it again. You cannot be afraid to be alone with yourself. And I go back to that statement that I asked you earlier. Do you agree or disagree? And the very fact that many of us are afraid to be alone with ourselves is the reason we always keeping some noise around us and people around us and always got something going, because we don't want to be in a room by ourselves with ourselves. Are we together? You cannot be afraid to be alone with yourself. Are you getting this tonight? Some of us don't have consistent and good prayer lives because we got to be quiet too long. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But look at what this says. It says, when Jesus heard about the death of John the Baptist, he withdrew. He got away from there and went to a remote place to be alone. Y'all getting this tonight? Look, here's some other instances of Jesus getting away. You may want to write these down. I just wanted to share these with you. Before the feeding of the 5,000. Says early in the morning in Mark chapter 1 and verse 35. After the 12 finished preaching and healing, they took time to be. Jesus said, hey, y'all come with me. Let's go to a secluded place together. You got it? You got it? After you spend your energy in ministry, let me just throw this out there. I just want to throw this out there. I want to tell you that after your pastor finishes preaching, and I'm not saying this to St. Luke, but I'm saying this in general because we have people who are with us from other churches. And I want to put this out there for them to understand some of what your pastor is going through. When your pastor finishes preaching, the last thing that your pastor wants to do is sit in a 2.5-hour counseling session with you. That's not because your pastor doesn't love you. It is because your pastor has just expended all of this physical energy, all of this emotional energy in preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. And your pastor needs, watch this, to get away to a secluded place. If that's the study with the doors closed and the shades pulled down, so be it. But allow your pastor a moment of solitude after they finish preaching. Did y'all get that? That's really not the time to come to your pastor with issues that are going on after they finish, after they just poured out of their energy preaching the gospel. That's the wrong time to come at them with issues and problems. What your pastor needs in that moment is a place of solitude. Wow. Wow. I know it's an important issue to you, and your pastor understands that it is an important issue to you. But please be respectful of your pastor's emotional energy and give them time to sit quiet and in solitude. Are you getting this tonight? All right, I was giving y'all time to write these down. All right, here's the next one. After healing the leper. How about this? The Mount of Transfiguration. Jesus said, listen, I want you guys to come up here with me. I'm getting ready to do something that nobody else is going to see. This is an intimate moment. The Mount of Transfiguration. And then how about this? How about this? The Garden of Gethsemane. That was a place of solitude. Just think about it. Just think about it. Yes, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John. But watch this. When he went to go talk to his father, the Bible says what? And Jesus went a little further. Yeah, he had his guys with him, but watch this. He left them and said to them, listen, y'all hang on with me for about an hour. I need to go. I need to go talk to my father. Help me. Are y'all getting this tonight? Solitude. Solitude. Y'all getting it? Get this. We must seek out moments and intervals of solitude intentionally. Intentionally. You can't accidentally have a moment of solitude. It's got to be intentional. Write it into your day. Plan it out. I'm going to be, watch this. It's just me and nobody else. I love my wife. I love my children. I love my son. I love Facebook. Help me. I love Instagram. I love video games. I love television. Help me. But I gotta, watch this. I gotta turn all of that stuff off. I gotta let all of that stuff go and be intentional about my moments of solitude. I have to do it on purpose. I have to do it with purpose. I have to do it for a purpose. Are y'all getting this tonight? Solitude. All right, let's keep moving forward. Oh, without silence, there is no solitude. So watch this. Silence and solitude go together. Silence and solitude go together. Without silence, there is no solitude. Silence involves the absence of speech. In other words, to have solitude, you ain't talking. Silence involves the act of listening. Got it? Silence is me not talking. Silence is me actively listening. Simply refraining from talking without a heart that is listening to God is not silence. Got it? Your heart has to be tuned in to what God is saying. Are you getting this tonight? Let me show you something. Watch this. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 7 says, there's a time to be silent and there's a time to speak. Got it? There's a time to be silent. There's a time to speak. How about this? How about James 1:19? My dear brothers and sisters, understand this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. And if you continue that into verse 20, it says, because the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. And sometimes if we learn this discipline of solitude, we would have better control of our anger. Yee! If we learn this discipline of solitude. How about this? I got another verse for you. This is Psalm 62, verse 1 from the New King James Version. Listen to what this verse says. Truly my soul silently waits for God. See that? See that? You got to be intentional about your moments of solitude, and those moments must have spaces of silence. You getting it? All right, here's another one. Talk to me. And let me give you the unmute. Talk to me. All right. Listen, Facebook, y'all join me. Listen, Zoom, y'all join me. Nobody's got a picture up tonight. Nobody's got your video on, and nobody's joining the conversation live. It's okay. All right. Talk to me. Why is silence so important to solitude? Why is silence so important to solitude? Why is silence so important to solitude?
Pastor, this is LaPearl.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm great. Doing well?
I would say silence is important because it's in that solitude that you're able to hear the voice of God. So you have to be silent to be able to hear, God speaking in your inner self.
I like
heart,
it.
your mind.
I like it. I like it. That's a great response. That's a great response. Thank you for that. Let me see. On Facebook Live, Lady Lee says, clarity, peace. Let me see. There is strength in silence. Janelle says, because noise, etc., would distract you. Good. Sandy Reynolds says, it allows an opportunity for thoughtful reflection without a lot of background interference. No distractions. The question is, why is silence so important to solitude? These are great responses. Great response from Mr. Pearl on Zoom. Great responses from our folks on Facebook Live. Why is silence so important to solitude? Let me see. Miss Emily on Facebook Live says it's time to be quiet and listen to your thoughts. All right. Let's do that. All right. We're going to drive the train forward. Thank you guys for your responses. And good evening, Lady Ann Lee. I'm glad to see you on. I miss your face. How about this? Silence and solitude enable me. This is what Ms. LaPearl just said. Silence and solitude enable me to see and hear. Not only did Ms. LaPearl say it, but many of you on Facebook Live said it as well. You said that there are no distractions. Sandy Reynolds said it allows an opportunity for thoughtful reflection without any interference. Silence and solitude, watch this, allow me to see and hear without interference. Listen, how frustrating is it to be listening to your favorite radio station? I know y'all got XM and all of that stuff now, but there was a time when we didn't have XM and we had to use an antenna, right? And you're listening to your favorite radio station, and all of a sudden it's playing your favorite song. I mean, it's Cameo, just like Candy. I don't know. Whatever your favorite song is, it's playing your favorite song, right? And in the middle of your song, at your favorite part, right? Here come a whole nother station. Wait. Or maybe you're like me, and sometimes you like listening to Christian talk radio, and you're listening to your show and they're on a subject that you really, really are intrigued with, and they have a caller who calls in and they have a question and they're getting ready to give the answer to that question, and at the moment they give the answer, your radio is bombarded by several other different signals. Can I tell you something? That's what the devil wants to do in our moments of solitude. He wants to bombard the signal from God with all of these other distractions to keep us from seeing God and hearing God. Come on, y'all. And so silence and solitude put me in a space where I can see and hear without interruption. No interference. Mr. Pearl said, going over the mountain on Route 70, Route 50. I know! Oh! Can't even get a good David Anderson show. Oh! How y'all getting this tonight? Watch this. The key to this is control. I learned when to speak and when to refrain from speaking. This is hard for some of us because some of us feel like at every interval, some of us feel like at every engagement, some of us feel like because of our life experience, we always got to have a comment. Excuse me. And we always have to interject. And we always have to make a point. But the key is control. I learned when, because remember, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 7 says, there is a time to speak and there is a time to refrain from speaking. Let's keep going because my time is running out. Look at this verse right here in Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Look at this verse right here. When I saw this verse, I said, whoa, I didn't believe that anything in the Bible was like this. Watch this. This verse says this. Do not be hasty to speak, and do not be impulsive to make a speech before God. God is in heaven and you are on earth, so let your words be few. Yikes. I like that. I like that. Sandy Reynolds says on Facebook Live, W-A-I-T. Why am I talking? I like that. I think you shared that in our Sunday school class one time. That's good, Sandy. That's good. Get this. Write this verse down. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 2. Don't be hasty to speak, and don't be impulsive to make a speech before God. I got to plead my case. Don't be hasty to speak. I got to defend myself. Don't be hasty to speak. And don't be impulsive to make a speech before God. God is in heaven and you on earth. So let your words be few. There's a verse in Proverbs that says a fool utters his whole mind. Come on, y'all. That's a great verse. Listen, I'm going to give you a verse. This is probably one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Proverbs chapter 25, verse 11. Proverbs chapter 25, verse 11. A word, King James Version says, fitly spoken. A word fitly spoken. That means a word spoken at the right time is like golden apples in silver settings. Wow. Now, please don't misunderstand. When it says golden apples, that's not a reference to Gold Delicious. No, not talking. We're not talking Fuji's and Macintosh. No, a word spoken at the right time is like golden apples in silver settings. Wow. Wow. Silence is a big part of solitude. And the majority of that silence depends on my ability to control my tongue. I'm not even going to take you to James chapter 4. I'm not even going to talk about that. But you might want to write down James chapter 4. Just read it. And see what it has to say about the power of the tongue. It's a small member, but it's really powerful. And a word at the wrong time can do us in. A word spoken at the right time can become a great blessing to us. Listen, we closing in. If we are silent when we should speak, we are not living in the discipline of silence. And the same is true if we speak when we should be silent. What does Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 7 say? There is a time to speak and there is a time to refrain from speaking. You got it? Measure your words, particularly as it relates to this discipline called solitude. Couple more things and we're going to get out of here. Remember Peter on the Mount of Transfiguration? Y'all remember that? Moses and Elijah showed up. Jesus' body was transfigured. This white garment. I mean, you know, it was really dramatic. Just kind of get that dramatic picture in your mind. Jesus there on the Mount of Transfiguration, and he's transformed and he's glowing white and, you know, kind of raises up in the air. And here's, I know I'm putting 20 on 10. And here's Moses on one side, and here's Elijah on the other side. And here are Peter, James, and John watching all of this from the ground. And nobody asked Peter anything. But at verse 4, Peter said, "Hey, Lord, let me build some temples for all three. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." Did nobody ask? He wasn't supposed to be talking in that moment. This was Jesus's moment of solitude. He was allowing them to participate in this solitary moment with him. And here come Peter. I know what we can do. Help me, somebody. Ecclesiastes 3:7 says there's a time to speak and there's a time to refrain from speaking. Listen, it is a real challenge to be silent. But when I am silent, I give opportunity for God to take control. Solitude. Solitude. Listen, for our direction section tonight, there's some details, and so I want you to get this. Here's the first detail. Mark out time in your schedule this week for solitude. Mark out time in your schedule this week for solitude. Be silent. Be still. Wait, one more time. Be silent. Be still. Got it? Here we go. 15 minutes of silence daily over the next 7 days. 15 minutes of silence daily over the next 7 days. No distractions. Turn off your cell phone. Turn off all your social media. Turn off your television. Turn off your video games. Turn off whatever other thing claims your attention for these 15 minutes of solitude. 15 minutes, that's all. 15 minutes daily over the next 7 days. And you don't have to tell me, but see if that makes a difference in your life physically and emotionally. See if your day goes a little different. See if your attitude changes just a little bit. 15 minutes of silence daily over the next 7 days. No distractions. Now, I want you to understand this. The urge to become fidgety is going to be strong during this time. All right? In these 15 minutes, your mind will race. In these 15 minutes, you will most likely think about things that you thought were long forgotten, but for whatever reason, it's because you're being quiet. They will challenge you to want to address them immediately. Got it? Remember this, you control these 15 minutes. You control this time. Those thoughts don't control that time. Focus, focus, focus. Some of you are going to argue, but Reverend, I can't do that for 15 minutes. Listen to what I'm getting ready to say to you. You do anything you want to do for 15 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. If your thing is reading the newspaper, guess what you'll do? You'll sit down and read a newspaper for 15 minutes and won't even think about it. Oh, yes. But when you have to intentionally do something that runs against the grain of what my flesh wants to do, oh, come on, talk to me here. Paul says, I beat my body into subjection so that when I run, my running won't be disqualified. And so, no, you already know, I just told you, I just gave it to you. The urge to fidget is going to be strong. So you already know that as soon as you get quiet, you're going to want to do this with your hands. You're going to rub your face. Nope, just chill. Because you already know that's going to happen. I already told you. How about this? Get this. Find some Bible verse or verses upon which you can focus during these 15 minutes. This is going to help keep you centered, and your focus should and will be on God and His Christ. And watch this. Do not quit. Don't sit there watching your watch. Don't quit too soon. Give it the full 15 minutes each day. You got it? You got it? Listen, thank you guys for joining us tonight and participating with us as we journey through this discipline of solitude and silence. It is my prayer. It's my prayer that you will become a master of these spiritual disciplines. That your life would reflect the glory of God in everything that you do. I want to tell you that this is not an impossible thing for you to do and achieve. You can do it. But in order for you to can do, you must do. All right? All right, listen, my time is up. I want to tell you this before we go, that Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 10 says, "For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works that God has prepared in advance for us to do." What we say as St. Luke Church is this, related to that verse, is that you, my friend, are created with a purpose, for a purpose, on purpose. Yeah. And it is our prayer for you. This is June 30th. You got 6 months left. That over these next 6 months, our prayer for you is that you will go and live in purpose. You can start that purposeful journey by engaging in these spiritual disciplines: meditation, prayer, fasting, study, simplicity, solitude. We're going to pick up next time at submission. So we look forward to seeing you next week. This is 4th of July weekend. It is 4th of July weekend. Listen, St. Luke, remember, depending on the weather, it'll be worship on the yard. So we look forward to seeing you at 10 a.m. On this coming Sunday on the church yard at 17 Liberty Street in Berryville, Virginia. I can't wait to gather with us again in person. And so this is kind of getting me excited for the time that we'll come together again. All right, listen, to all of our executive leadership, I'll see you guys tomorrow night in our meeting. Please be sure to check your email, because I did send you the link for our executive leadership meeting. All right. Thank you to all of our friends and family on Facebook Live who joined us. And I hate to single folks out, but I just got to say to my sister, Lady Ann Lee, God bless you. Thank you for joining us. I'm always blessed because when you're on with us. And watch this. In order for you to can do, you must do. All right. There we go. All right. I love y'all. Y'all have a good night, okay? God bless you.